we're reading through Kindred of the East, a very requested thing that we read through. When I put it out, I was like, "Hey, Steve and I are just finishing up Oriental Adventures. What do you want?" And we did a poll, and L5R won by a landslide. It was like 54% L5R. But if you looked at all the text responses, all the people who messaged us in the thread, it was overwhelmingly this book.
Mm-hmm.
So the L5R community was just like, click L5R. I don't want to say the Kindred of the East community. I will say the people who've seen Kindred of the East said, read Kindred of the East, because this is a fucking piece of shit.
So remember, if this turns out to be trash, it's your fault.
Audience, it's your fault that we have to read this. And I think that's why we're here. And that's why I said
Yeah.
we are going to be gracefully furious at this thing. So
Daniel might be gracefully furious. I'm just gonna be furious.
Lemmie's already just like you're just like holding in all this anger.
We're going to like channel the wisdom of our ancestors and think about our honor.
Well, that's what they'd say here. And don't forget our honor, our glory, and our status.
Yeah, Allah, let's not get into it.
Yeah. So with me, I have two amazing guests. Adam Ali, who you know from who is now an ongoing member of our Al-Qadim read-through, and Lemmie of Lucky Hand Dice, and had an appearance on our Oriental Adventures 3rd edition art read-through, where you got furious at the way the text wrapped around the illustrations.
No, Daniel, like the next time I see you, I owe you a punch for making me read through this Kindred of the East with all of this art behind the
But Lemmie, you got to meet me.
So, I have two amazing people. Let's not forget that, Lemmie, you are the owner of Lucky Hand Dice. You make sharp-edged, handcrafted, artisanal dice that are most excellent. LuckyHandDice.com. And Adam Ali, you are one of the coordinators of Breakout Con, which is going to be happening in Toronto in March 2021.
Inshallah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully 2021. We'll see. I recently heard that the CDC said. Was it the CDC? Yeah, I think the CDC said that we wouldn't be clear until July 2021. So, fingers crossed that we get to do Breakout Con, because I had this revelation the other day, and I don't know why it took me so long, but I realized that there are so many people who I talk to all the time, but I only get to see in person at cons.
The first time we met was at Breakout Con.
Exactly.
We live in the same bloody city.
I know, right? And like I only get to see Lemmie at conventions, right? And we had a blast, except for that D&D game where you just where the GM just kept killing you.
Man, that was
one of the worst.
That's another story for another time.
One of the worst D&D game I've ever played, and the last time I ever played D&D at a con. But it was one of the first times that we had a majority Asian group, and we had an Asian DM.
Yeah.
And but anyways, Kindred of the East. Before we started the stream, we kind of strategized on how we would go about doing this, taking into consideration some of the lessons that Steve and I learned from reading through Oriental Adventures. And this is based on a lot of the feedback that we got from the community, was that you didn't mention this unearthed arcana where comeliness was mentioned, or like comeliness isn't a stat in 5th edition D&D anymore. Basically, a lot of people saying that you weren't alive and playing D&D when I was playing Oriental Adventures, therefore you don't know why Oriental Adventures is important. So, let me remember, gracefully furious. So for this stream, what I thought we would do is chat about the context in which this monstrosity was published. And Adam Ali, you happen to be our resident Vampire the Masquerade expert.
Term expert is rather large. There have been 5 editions of Vampire the Masquerade. This comes from Vampire the Masquerade Revised Edition, also known as 3rd edition. So back in the day, and this is when we talk about context. Back in the day, from 1996 to 2002, White Wolf did yearly themes for all their releases. This comes from 1998. So that was the year of the Lotus. And that is the year where Of the East bits came out for several of their lines, including Changeling, which was called 1001 Dreams or something, Shapeshifter, Werewolf, which was called Hengeyokai, Shapeshifters of the East, and of course Vampire, which is this book that we absolutely love.
So good. Lemmie, you're just like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, Daniel.
When you're a kid, you're told if you don't have anything nice, don't say it.
Well, we are here.
So I'll just be low key for right now.
Just be low key, okay. Just hold your breath and turn purple.
just turn purple.
Anyways, sorry, Adam Ali.
No, it's more than okay. I'm kind of like feeling the same thing. But the reason why this is important to mention, why Kindred of the East stands apart, is compared to all those other releases, Kindred of the East eventually became its own game line, with a companions book, with clan books, because Vampire was separate into clan, and in addition to that, not only starting its own game line, which indicates that it was quite popular, it is different in the sense that the vampires of Kindred of the East are functionally, mechanically, entirely different to the vampires of Vampire the Masquerade, despite the fact this was a companion book. It's almost a game within a game.
Right.
This is not only in their structure, but also in their mechanics. They were trying to really be inspired by vampiric themes from all over the East. The East, in this context, is everywhere from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, China, Japan, Korea, the Philippines, Indonesia, and unstated but still there, every other country in between, not including Russia. That's an important bit. That's basically where the majority of humanity lives and did live in 1998. It became so popular that in 2000, a mage book was even requested, and that is called Dragons of the East, which you may have seen us.
Oh, we're gonna do a stream of that too.
I would be happy to be there, even though
I looked that shit up, and just on the drive-through RPG description I was just like, oh my god,
yeah,
we're oh my god, we're reading this thing, and oh.
It should be noted that Kindred of the East, even though it's in all those countries, it's really inspired by China, most of all. Its name is a bastardization of two different languages, not just one. The vampires of Kindred of the East are called Kuei-jin. I forgot why, but yeah. There's themes of Buddhism in here, of Shintoism, of more. It's basically a lot. It's a lot. And it should be noted that this was only for 3rd edition. There was no Kindred of the East 20th anniversary, also known as 4th edition, nor have Kindred of the East been mentioned in 5th edition, which is where Vampire is today, although they do appear in several novels, novellas, and video games.
Okay.
You sound like an expert.
Between the three of us, of the three of us, you're certainly the expert.
In context. Sure. Thank you. I do appreciate it. I will say one more important thing. It's not the only Kindred of book that exists. There is also Kindred of the Ebony Kingdom. But Kindred of the Ebony Kingdom, which was about Africa, its vampires were mechanically similar to vampires in Vampire the Masquerade. Again, this really does stand out. And it really indicates why it became rather popular, despite the fact it was never seen in any edition after this. White Wolf today is a different White Wolf from White Wolf of the past. It still has its problems. It's not too long ago where certain depictions of Chechnya appeared in a White Wolf book, but it was caught by Paradox and shredded. So there's that. In addition to several other mistakes that White Wolf has still made, these do not compare to the mistakes of yesteryear. There's a lot more of them. And Vampire so far has indicated to be more inclined to listen and more inclined to adapt to the world around it, both in terms of content, but also in terms of, what we know to be offensive now, which previous editions didn't exactly do. It's no mistake that it's known as the edgy RPG. Vampire 5th edition is out. It's got 5 books behind it, with one more on the way. Werewolf 5th edition is in development right now at Hunter's Entertainment. We could really talk about the politics of White Wolf all day, and it could be its own stream. But I think it's best that we move on after mentioning that this was published and produced by the White Wolf of yesteryear.
Yes, because a lot of people will bring that up. And I think that I'll leave it to you as to whether or not we actually engage with the actual mechanics of the game, because that's something we didn't do as much in the Oriental Adventures stream. It's kind of something where, as you've seen, we're half doing with the L5R stream, and we're only interacting with, in terms of our critical analysis, with the mechanics if they are thematically Asian. Like the strife mechanic in L5R, or how comeliness, which is a great example of this, how comeliness has its own implications when you're using that word in an Asian setting, even though comeliness wasn't exclusive to Oriental Adventures.
Okay, so one thing should mention, I don't know if it's in this specific book directly, but it probably will be on the sheet. There is an appearance stat. It has been in every edition until 4th for Vampire. It's no longer in 5th edition, but it's just called appearance, and it applies to all books. Okay. So, there's that. In terms of the other mechanics, there might be themes.
We'll figure it out when the time comes. Let's do this. Virtual high five, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go. So the okay. Well, okay. The PDF I have is like, let's just go to the cover, and I'll zoom out just so everyone can see this beautiful cover. Kindred of the East, a source book for Vampire the Masquerade, which is 3rd edition, as we've now learned. Mm-hmm. I immediately hated this.
Why is that, Daniel?
Do you know what that character is on the cover?
I feel you're going to tell me.
That's the character for Chi.
Oh, that makes more sense than you would think.
And I'm assuming the vampires here, they drain chi, they do all of that shit. A couple things that are like super that bother me so much. And look, I'm not the greatest at the Chinese language. In fact, I lived in China for a very long time, and all the Chinese that I learned living in Toronto and studying Chinese here was basically thrown out the window when I started working in like rural towns. And so I basically was just like, I'm a baby, I don't know how to speak this language. But there were like things that are like fundamental to the Chinese language that this cover fucks up. So we have a friend, Ken Davidson, and his kids are learning how to write Chinese. And he posted this on and he was just showing how, when you're learning how to write Chinese, you learn stroke order when you're writing. And the character that they use for Chi basically fucks everything up in terms of stroke order. And it bothers me so much, particularly the parts of the character that are inside the little house. Mm-hmm. It's so bad. And I'm assuming chi is going to be a big thing in this, and I'm assuming Chinese vampires are going to drain chi.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, of course they do. So I get why they did that, but it's, for something so racist, it's so incredibly offensive to see them use basically the core vital essence to traditional Chinese medicine, Chinese martial arts, and Chinese spiritual practice on this cover. On top of, say, the wonton font.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna say when I first saw this, the layout and the color scheme, I thought, oh, were they really inspired by menus?
Oh, 100%.
Because they look like it looks like a bloody menu. Thank you, thank you.
It's 100%. It looks exactly like that.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
bad.
So we're in the table of contents. I mean, we're gonna go over all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just hate how they use the Middle Kingdom, and I said this before. Um, Calling it the Middle Kingdom tells us that this is supposed to be China to you, and so whenever they take things that are not Chinese, we're gonna see very much how they were picking and choosing Asian elements that they want to include in this. But by taking the Middle Kingdom, which is the English translation for China, 中国, and putting it right there on page 152, but I know it appears earlier because we all kind of read into it, and on page 6 of the book, it's right there.
Yep.
This is supposed to be China. So
And whatever isn't Chinese, they're trying to justify it by saying that everything, comes like eventually comes from China. There was we read a little paragraph beforehand, and it was just like justification for anything that isn't Chinese
Oh,
to
no.
be added.
Mm-hmm.
no,
Like, yeah.
no. I just read something. It's so bad. I'm gonna read this out, and if any of you are following along, it's on page 6 of the PDF, and it's actually the text that's within that. Like, it's supposed to look like burnt paper.
I don't know if Lemmie, you want to handle this or I should handle this, but first of all, Al.
Ow, the graphic design. First of all, yes.
Oh,
And
that's like the first thing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
read this, and then we're gonna.
Wait, are you the stuff in the middle, right?
In the
On
middle, yeah,
introduction?
above the Zen Master Bunan quote.
Yeah, no, that was the paragraph that I was just like, I'm done. I was like, I'm gonna tell Daniel I'm quitting. I'm not doing this.
I'm gonna threaten to punch Daniel next time I see him because he put me through this shit.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read this. He steps into the boiling night. Okay, I gotta zoom in because this shit is
It's so hard to read,
so hard
right?
to read.
I can actually read it quite clearly.
He
but at
steps
the
into
same
the
time,
boiling night. Tokyo neon shines on Spanish leather. With a smirk, he eyes the gaudy skyscape and chuckles at the Reedy? Okay, because that's another
Street song.
Reedy street song wine. The little monkeys had done a marvelous job of copying everything that was tacky and soulless in the West.
I was done right there. I was done right there. But keep on going. Keep on
What
going.
the fuck?
this
Yeah.
is from a Western, like this is specifically from a Western vampire perspective.
Yes, but first of all, they're supposed to be like, arrogant vampires,
Yeah.
blah blah. But like the little monkeys, prime
Yo, no,
feeding
this already-
ground. His mind's eyes, dancing with samurai flicks. The Ventru crosses, Nakameguru Street. Tiny people in bright colors make way for the stranger. None poses any threat. Behind this man lies the weight of centuries. Cainite's strength and the power of a clan so easily. A whistling song cuts through his reverie and his neck. The pavement leaps up to meet the Cainite's gaze and becomes a blur of near and far, street and sky, until a bit of trash brings the panorama to a halt. From a distance, he hears his body spasm and fall. A flash, a sizzle behind him, the smell of cooking meat. Across the street, he feels a hot blade dice him into quarters. One final sizzle. As the heart dies, 500 years die with it. No one notices. Konnichiwa, Gaijin, says a young man's voice. Welcome to my home.
Oh, there's just
So let's start with some definitions.
So this is why I wanted to say this is about China.
Yeah.
And then no, uh,
Yeah, this is bad. Like
it's
that,
like
let's just open up with it. This is bad.
arrogant white vampire walks into Asia. The Asian people, so below him, immediately hostile, and they kill him in the street.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Because they're very, very insular. Don't you know that, Daniel? Asian people are insular.
Yep.
Uh-huh. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
no.
Someone had to say it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. It's just like
Yeah.
Asian people are unwelcoming of foreigners.
Mm-hmm. It's
And, it's just
and that's
like,
a major theme throughout this novel, this book. One thing that really does strike me is that one, that none of this makes sense, but two, the order in which things like are written don't make like he hears his body spasm and fall, and then across the street he feels a hot blade isometric. Like
I think he was astral projecting. I think that's it. I think he's astral projecting, and then as he was out of his body, he's like,
No. Daniel, do not try and justify.
Oh, this is still bad.
Oh no. Okay, so first of all, he's a Ventrue. A Ventrue is a type of vampires in general in the West.
Oh yeah. So what is a Ventrue and what is a
yeah.
canite? A canite.
Yeah. So all vampires in Vampire the Masquerade up until this are canites. They call themselves that because most of them believe, that they descend from Cain, the first murderer. They call him that on purpose. Vampires are sorted into generation, how far you are away from Cain. 500 years, roughly 9th generation, I'd guess. Ventrue is a clan. After the 3rd generation, there were only 12 survivors, and each of them started their own clan whose vampiric abilities matched them in terms of what they were good at. And indeed, who had a major clan flaw that matches very much what their flaw was. A Ventrue is the blue blood of the West. They do not have the ability usually to astral project. That's a different power.
Okay.
So I'm even less forgiving here. They're super strong. They're influencers. They like very. It doesn't really matter. The point is, they're the Blue Blood clan, and you're supposed to read this, I think, as this was originally a source book that started its own game line, to be like the clan that is the strongest in vampire society in the West is nothing compared to this.
So this takes place in our world, though, right?
Yes,
because because like Nakamaguro is in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. Yes, honestly, just yes. But they call this the world of darkness, and in the world of darkness, everything is worse. Is how it goes.
It's like the upside down.
Yeah, so it's like a step away from our world. The populations are higher, the technology is even more abundant, the corruption is thicker, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't really matter. Most people who play Vampire, especially nowadays, just play it in the common world.
Right, so this is just an edgy alternate reality.
Basically. But the point is, other than the supernatural, everything else is the same.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's get going. Let's see if we can hit 5 pages today.
I don't think so.
Just, Adam Ali, can you just believe it? Can you just believe in something? Just believe in something. I kept getting Steam notifications, so I had to shut off my Steam. Just believe in something. Lemmie?
I just want to just trying to like be not objective. I want to be objective about this kind of writing. Is that it's very it's written very negatively about like Asia, or like, because you see like they use the words like gaudy and wine, like street song wine. It's that like it's
unwelcoming.
Yeah,
for,
it's very
for the outsider.
It's very telling that our first introduction is from a white Western blue blood to this.
Oh, yeah, because yeah, I just love how they put konnichiwa, Gaijin. Welcome to my home. I'm just like, oh god.
I love how he starts in one language and ends in another.
Yeah,
it's my favorite thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't count how many times I've gone somewhere in Toronto. Let's just say this in Toronto, and I've walked in, and some white person has been like, "Oh, ni hao," to me, and I'm just, oh,
I've gotten like namaste or salamat or whatever. By the way, it's not salamat, it's just salam.
yeah,
Putting that one now. I get it. It happens. It happens. There's a lot of people who think they understand our cultures almost as much as we do, and that's pretty telling, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, that's tabletop RPGs.
And
That's
that
like,
is, yeah, that's what this is written for.
yeah, that's like, oh, we were talking about this on the Asians Represent Discord, and it was like, why do you? There was a member was saying like, well, when is it good for a non-Asian person to write a source book about Asia? And the answer is always so complicated. But I always tell people to say, okay, well, why do you want to? It's not that it's whether or not it's right to or whether or not it's good to. It's why do you as an individual want to do that? And it's almost always, like, I spent a summer in Tokyo and I really appreciate the culture and I want to spread the culture of Japan to all of my friends.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, my like my partner is Asian and I really appreciate their culture. Or I have an East Asian studies degree and I want to make use of my education in the space I now occupy.
It's also very much never like, it's never an inclusive thing. Like, I want to write something that takes place in the entire world, and I should include all of the world. Like, it's just I want to write about Asia specifically.
Or it's almost always a white person being like, I want to help other people appreciate Asia like I do. So I'm going to help you Asians tell your stories in a way that other white people like me are going to like it. Therefore, more white people will like Asian shit. And that's often what we see. And sadly, we've made an entire Twitch channel off of all of these really terrible products.
Yeah.
That exist for many of those reasons, to show their appreciation for Asian culture.
If only we could make money off of it too.
If only we could. But anyways, let's continue.
Is there any way to make this better? This paragraph, this introduction.
This
the
introduction?
first thing. Yeah. Is there any way to make this better, or should we just trash it? Just like
Not have it at all.
Yeah.
Because this is literally the first thing. Well, I mean, aside from all this stuff, this is literally the first thing the player, the owner of this book, reads when they open it up, and they're like, okay, introduction, behind the wall. First of all, behind the wall.
Yalla.
I
We know what that's a reference to, right?
yeah.
We know.
They're like, oh, what's behind the Great Wall of China? Oh, Tokyo. This is what they just said. But
Yeah.
like, this really sets the scene for what the players are to expect, right? It's the same thing with the opening for L5R when we were talking about that, and a lot of people were like, well, if you go to this page later in the book, it says this, or if you read this novella, it says this, or if you read this, if you read Path of the Waves, which actually sounds like the best current L5R book, because you don't have to.
I'd love to read it.
I want to read that because it doesn't sound like you have to be a samurai. But like, if you just read the book as it is in L5R and in this, it sets the expectation of what the game is going to be.
Oh yeah.
For a new person. And I would take this out because it sets the expectation that you're not supposed to play as a white vampire, because if you're a white vampire and you go anywhere near the Asian territory, you'll get killed. It also sets the expectation that you're going to play an Asian character and the white people and the white vampire are going to be your enemies.
Or if you play a white character, the Asians are going to be racist towards you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also just a mistake, and I'll say this for any text that is going to introduce a new setting to your world, or even just a setting. Never have it from an outsider's perspective.
Absolutely.
It's screams appropriation, because the whole point of what makes things not appropriation is if someone brings you in as opposed to you ripping it away. So if you're going to have an introduction that is story and theme, and this is a bad thematic thing, but if you're going to have something like this, have it from someone literally introducing a person into their culture.
The problem with that is if we were to rewrite this opening, we'd have to rewrite the entire book.
That's the point. Yeah.
Because as we've now seen with just the bit that we've all read, this opening paragraph is reflective of what the book actually is, which is sad. So
I would just leave that quote, "While living, be a dead man, be thoroughly dead, and behave as you like, and all's well." I would make that your big introduction, because that's fine.
That's fine.
I don't know why it's called a Zen master, but that's fine, I guess. That's enough of an introduction.
I wonder if that's an actual person.
Zen Master Banan. I would love that. I would love that and cry.
They're
yeah,
poet.
it is. It was an actual. That was an actual person. And
was that an actual quote? They're a poet.
Yeah, they're a poet.
They were a poet.
Yeah, I was like, what the is this? And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, okay.
Is that an actual
an actual person, and that's an actual quote.
Okay, then I actually really enjoy that.
I like it better than this opening thing, because it's kind of on theme with the whole vampire thing.
Yeah, and it connects to the real world, which this wants to.
But here's the problem with that. When we were just talking about cultural appropriation, right? You've taken like text, while kind of fitting to what this is. You've taken the text out of context.
Yes, that's true.
Right? And you've taken what is a quote or a poem that is attributed to a Zen master, a Japanese Zen master, and you've stripped it of its actual meaning that the Zen master actually intended, and you've given it new meaning. It
was also written by white people. So
it's also written by white people.
It's always appropriate.
So while we like the fact that, hey, this quote is more fitting than this text, having that quote there in and of itself is what we're defining as cultural appropriation. It's complicated.
It is complicated, and the best thing to do is, if you're really interested in something, like if you really want a Kindred of the East to exist, if you're making another Year of the Lotus, please don't call it that. If you're making a new Year of the something, hire people from those areas. Give them what you're thinking might be a good idea. See what they want to do with it, because generally they'll come up with something far more interesting. You can find writers almost anywhere. And sure, they may not have the experience, but this is the point. The reason why they don't have the experience is because you choose to write their stuff and exclude them from it, and you end up with bad.
Yeah. I think when you think of a Western audience and you think of their introduction to Asian vampires or Asian people within vampire media, can you even think of anything?
No. I mean, okay, I can think of Jiangxi and Blood at the Banquet Table. But
that's modern.
That's very modern.
That's modern, and there's lots of, Jiangxi in like Hong Kong cinema and niche movies. Right? Yep. But so few people can actually think of, like Asian vampires. Like if you think about what Marvel has done, and you look at like Blade, there's one Asian character played by Donnie Yen in Blade 2. And they took a Chinese actor and they made him wear samurai armor and wield a katana as a vampire hunter. An Asian.
The moment you mentioned, when you think of what Marvel has done, Ting was like, Donnie Yen in Blade 2. So
yeah, exactly. Donnie Yen in Blade 2. There we go, Ting. We're on the same wavelength here.
It's
and that he had no speaking lines, and
they don't ever take the chance to expose people to actual culture is the problem, right?
Yeah, and then there's also the assumption that, the vampire as Westerners know it is the same as the vampire as people in China, Japan, Korea might know it.
Yeah, and India. Don't forget India.
Yeah. Oh, is India in this too?
It's one of the countries technically covered.
Wonderful.
It is explained a bit more in the companion book. I will say this: the whole reason this book exists in the way it does mechanically is because they did realize that the Asian vampire is different from the Western vampire. The problem is how they're choosing to frame it, who's writing it, and what they did, right? So
Okay.
they at least understood that.
Okay. That's a good point. That's a fair point.
I don't want to give them too much credit, to be honest, but this was the whole point this book exists in the way it does, is because they did understand there's a fundamental difference from what we call vampires here in the West and how similar beings are constructed in Asian myth, stories, and legend.
Okay. This was
I don't-
okay. So I had to
yeah.
check. This was written in 1998.
Yeah, 1998. I mentioned that.
So
I know that.
let's read.
Yes.
For thousands of years, and I'm assuming the Kindred is an in-world term.
Yep. Oh, Kindred is also Cainite. They're same thing.
Okay. The Kindred have ravaged the world of darkness, claiming descent from the first murderer, Cain. These parasites have riddled old and new world alike. The children of Cain influence, subvert, and pervert the highest echelons of mortal government, economics, and culture. Nothing, they claim, escapes their corrupting touch. They are wrong. One realm eludes their clutches, the ancient land of Asia. Although Asia offers unthinkable riches and oceans of blood, kindred who come here do so fearfully. Since the Knights of the Galleons, Western vampires' attempts to exploit this land have met with dismal and horrific failure. For another sort of vampire rules Asia's knights. These vampires scorn the myth of Cain, for they are cohorts of spirits and demons. None of them are the indulgences of generation, respect. Oh, wait, not for them are the indulgences of generation, respect, power, and age are privileges to be earned. Their curse is not a random, pointless embrace, but a karmic debt to be repaid. Their beast is not a mindless adversary, but a double-edged weapon. And, as the kindred have learned to their dismay, their eastern counterparts have developed fearful powers and arcane arts. Kindred of the East is a source book detailing the unique vampires indigenous to the Orient. Their society, their wars, their environment, their duties, and above all, the reaction to Western incursion. Before we address the vampires of the East, however, there are a few notes of the world, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Wow, that is very, very exoticized.
Yeah, so instead of being like, this is well, first they say this is a place that the West would want to exploit because of its unthinkable riches. However, the locals are extremely violent and unwelcoming to you.
It's just
What gets me is that the part where it says that it's karmic debt to be repaid. Like, they deserve this. Like, it's not like
Asians deserved this violent curse.
Yeah. It's not like white people where some of them are innocent and they were just victims. It's like Asians, this is your fault.
this is your karma.
Look at me. I'm Scott Speedman in Underworld. Sorry.
I mean, that's to be like that is no that. There's a reason why I'm stuttering right now.
I really like. I'm not gonna lie. I really liked the first Underworld movie when she like shoots a hole in the ground and.
Daniel, you're supposed to be graceful.
I'm being graceful, like Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, but the karmic debt thing is like we're gonna get into it, so I might as well not mention it.
Yeah, and let's not mention like the whole idea of karma.
It's gonna come up.
Yeah.
Karma and dharma are like karma and dharma are a huge part of this book to an absurd degree. And I think in this sense they took it more from Buddhism than they did from India.
Yeah.
But to be fair, this also covers India. So
I love how it's just like the kindred are like influential, and they don't openly meddle, and then it's just Asia's just like oceans of blood.
Cohorts of spirits and demons.
They
try so
somehow
hard.
manage to make it spiritual, no matter what.
Oh, this is very, yeah.
I wonder, do the vampires in this have an honor score?
Je ne sais pas.
Okay, we'll find out.
Yeah, so the source book is is a reaction to the Western incursion. So like, and above
it
all,
frames it
the
as
reaction.
a confrontational culture.
Mm-hmm. So it's not even about like,
Oh god.
like, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like, oh, the first line under the Middle Kingdom, dear.
Okay,
God.
let's go.
Let's go.
Wait, let me finish your point first.
Yeah,
No, it's just that like this is supposed to be focusing on Asian vampires, but again, they've made it about, white vampires. It was never going to be about Asian vampires. This was never going to be about a lore surrounding Asian vampires. This is always going to be about how, like,
the West views them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if there's no way of rectifying this.
Oh no, 100%, because like this
Yeah.
isn't written for Asians.
Yeah.
This is written for white people. Let's be honest here. This is written for white people, because it's like, this is how Asian vampires see your kind of vampire. And here's how you could tell their adversarial stories.
I guess that's the most disappointing thing, is like, there's no way that like this can be changed, that this can be better.
No, the entire purpose of this book is
it would need
racist.
Like, I could say you could keep the name, and then everything else would have to be pretty much Ctrl-D and just deleted, and then replaced with anything else.
It's like, even the name. I mean, if you kept the name, then you'd have to take out a lot of the content.
Yep.
Right? This is the reason why I asked about the World of Darkness in general.
Yeah.
Why don't they just call it China? Well, I know why they call it the Middle Kingdom, because Westerners have long spoken of Asia's exoticism.
Yeah, the first line, right?
The first line.
I think the point is the Middle Kingdom is supposed to include Japan and Korea and all the others, which again is,
it's problematic in its own right.
Yeah. And it would take, like, obviously it's problematic, and I think anyone who would read it would immediately understand that once you extrapolate that information. Like, I can't even sit, it take 20 years.
Well, who reading this would know that the Middle Kingdom is China? Unless you were a Chinese person, or
but
somebody who
knows.
Chinese
people.
But it's not for Chinese people.
Yeah.
We were introduced through a white man's eyes.
Yeah.
It ain't for Chinese people. It ain't for anybody who's not white.
Honestly, nobody should read this book. But we are.
We're done with the stream. Thank you for coming.
We're not just going to play Animal Crossing for 2 hours.
What? Let's read. Do you want to read?
May I?
Yeah, go for it.
Westerners have long spoken of Asia's exoticism, of its alien ways and rules. In the world of darkness, they are correct, more so than they realize. The Asian world of darkness is referred to as the Middle Kingdom by its supernatural denizens, and in many ways, it is truly a world unto itself. On the surface, the Middle Kingdom resembles the rest of the world of darkness. The same ambience of decay and gloom shrouds it, highlighting its most sinister aspects. The major cities are overcrowded hives choked with faceless impersonal skyscrapers, anonymous hordes of frantic workers, vice tongs, and teeming disease-infested slums. In the countryside, rural folk hack a subsistence living, if that, from trackless jungles and defoliated saturated craters, all the while praying for protection from the monsters and spirits they know exist just out of sight. In the Middle Kingdom, it is all too easy to step around the nearest corner or the next bend of the road and then simply vanish. In many areas, dictators grind their subjects to paste under gun butts and tank treads. Fucking hell. Every year, thousands of people simply disappear, never to be heard from again. Government facilities and political prisons are veritable abattoirs. Once in turn, no one emerges to tell tales. Ancient families and secret societies manipulate entire economies from behind screens of honor and propriety, while family vendettas from the days of emperors and samurai are settled in boardrooms and back alleys alike. Most people are ingrained simply to look the other way, and thus even legitimate investigations often become fruitless endeavors, punctuated by non-committal shrugs and blank stares. Drink, because we did say the word honor.
I literally was like, if Asian vampires are governed by honor, I'm ending the stream.
No, you did not say that, my friend. You said,
I said,
and I quote, Bushido.
Oh yeah, Bushido. You're right. Bushido. Good.
God.
Sorry, we
Thank
still
you.
have to continue.
You still have to do this. Damn it, I was looking for a way out. Okay.
So that last paragraph is that's what all vampires do. Like,
Yeah. It's
so it's just like demonizing Asian vampires for doing it, but like all vampires do that.
Yeah.
Someone's asking about clans, and let me tell you, there are no clans in this book. It's handled a very different way. So, technically speaking, the entire world of darkness could be described in these words, and they do mention that. The problem is, in context, this is literally what people think about Asia, especially overpopulated cities like Delhi and
Shanghai
and Beijing.
has more. There are more people in Shanghai than there are in all of Canada.
Yeah, this takes a whole. It's like what we spoke about comeliness earlier. Yes, this is all the world of darkness, but it takes extra meaning when it's applied to a nation where people already think of it. Nations already think of it like this. Like the whole dictators grind their subjects to pace. Who are they talking about?
North Korea.
Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah, they're talking about like North Korea or even like stereotypical parts of Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like
It's
ugh. And then there's the bits here where there are like disease infested slums. What do you
as
think
opposed to regular slums.
What do you think they're talking
Yeah.
about there?
Believe me,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would know.
On the countryside, rural folk hack a subsistence living. And that
If
It
like the idea with what they're doing here, and this is how it reads to like an Asian person, is they're trying to say that the average person who is not a vampire, they live a shitty life in the world of darkness, right? That play on stereotypes of like, oh yes, rural China, life's so tough, they struggle for survival, blah blah blah, and the vampires like oppress all of these people.
There's especially something wrong with the way, on the surface, the Middle Kingdom resembles the rest of the world of darkness. Rather than saying, the world of darkness is this, the Middle Kingdom is no different. Like, they didn't phrase it like that because they want to include parts about craters to reference Vietnam, and parts about slums to reference India, and
Yep.
More.
Anonymous hordes of frantic workers, Japan. Impersonal skyscrapers, China.
Yeah.
It's and all praying for protection from the monsters and spirits. So the common Asian person is also helpless and spiritual.
I mean, in the same sense that everyone is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ancient families and secret societies, like that's very much what the children of Cain are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they make it different because they say, well, they do it behind the guise of honor and propriety.
Yeah. And then they mention emperors and samurai just so you understand, yes, this is about Asia now. We're talking about Asia.
Yeah,
All
and then,
the Asia.
Mm-hmm.
and then look, we go to the next page and look at the writing. So they've got this art, which looks like a wood block art, but then the writing is just nothing.
Those words mean nothing?
That's the some of them look like words, but some of them are just squiggles. And like that, and then the artist's signature.
They try to make it look like
DWF97. That's their signature.
19. To be fair, I think the 97 is the year.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's their signature.
Yeah.
They signed this piece of art and they made it look like it was a part of the
Oh,
script.
I didn't even bloody notice that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their art. That's their signature.
So instead of like putting their signature like outside of the art or maybe in a corner like how they usually do it, they just like tried to imitate the style of it.
Yeah,
Which is-
and look, they're not, and I know people are gonna say this. A lot of artists do that. I will zoom because some people are asking. Just give me one moment. There we go. There's the signature right there. There's DWF97. Now there are other artists who do this. See, I have to move this magnifier because it will get into our Zoom chat. There are some things here that look kind of like Chinese words. And then there are some that just look like squiggles. It's a mess. They're trying to do calligraphy here, and it's just not that. They're clearly a talented artist, but the message is bad. Now, I was going to say earlier, there are going to be people who say like, oh, well, putting the signature in a scroll next to the art, that's not unique to this. And there are very prominent artists who do that. Todd McFarlane is a big one. His signature looks like it's on a scroll and it always sits right next to the piece. But Todd McFarlane's art doesn't do what this is doing.
They also put it like directly under something that's supposed to look like
exactly.
Like they're it's not just putting it in a scroll, they're putting it in the context like this is real world.
Exactly. And also, I thought this was supposed to take place in a parallel 1998. Why have they chosen to show an Asian woman wearing a traditional outfit? Now, given that people still wear that though, like I will say that, they've chosen to use a traditional outfit to show how different and exotic this is, right? They on the previous page they were talking about on the previous page they were talking about like skyscrapers, and in this really terrible opening text they were talking about like the Tokyo neon lights. And then on the next page they show somebody who is maybe doesn't know about Asia is like, oh yeah, I guess that's how people dress in Asia all the time. Or they've decided to show somebody in clothing in an art style that is generally associated with historical Japan.
I mean, this is literally the depiction of what people praying for protection from the monsters and spirits they know exist just out of sight. They are praying, there is a monster out. That is really deep. But they're doing it because that is the point of this text. That is what the core of what your gameplay experience is going to be. That's what it makes it seem like. It is going to be, you will be the monster peeping in on people while they are praying to take their chi. I mean, to take their whatever they take.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't just exoticize. That's the part that really gets me, because a lot of things exoticize. Anything by a white writer often exoticizes. This goes out of its way to do it over and over and over again. They're like, it's different. It's different. Do you get that? It's different. It's different. It's so different. Do you get that? It's different. And like,
it's almost like they're trying to tell the reader, it's like, you're not playing a white vampire. You're playing an Asian vampire. You're playing an Asian vampire. You're playing an Asian vampire.
And that makes no sense considering what this book is titled.
Yeah.
So why are you making so much effort?
Yeah, so okay, let's go back to that title, because Kindred of the East, but the Kindred are the children of Cain. Is that the in-world lore? That's
Kindred are what children of Cain use other than the word vampire, because the word vampire is banal, and also you can say kindred in public without people looking twice, I guess.
Okay, so they're like the children of Cain in the East is kind of what the title implies.
Yeah, they're basically like, this is the comparison to Kindred. There's normal Kindred, and then there's Kindred of the East. it would probably make more sense if there were quotation marks around the word kindred.
Yeah, but then that would be a weird book title.
Yeah. I mean, so the Asian vampire's name for kindred, for children of Cain, is Kinjin, using the name kindred plus the word jin. So, like, they go out of their way to make sure that you don't call them kindred, and yet the title is Kindred of the East.
I guess it's easy to pronounce.
Because their courts are different. You don't understand. Their courts are so much different.
What if they just said Courts of the East?
Or like Vampires of the East.
Yeah. They
Why
could
not
have.
that?
I mean, like, again, I think right now we've already said that this book just shouldn't have existed as is.
Right. Right. Kindred. Ken makes an interesting point. We'll get to it later, but yes, the Kindred call the Kuei-jin the Cathians, which is its own problem. Should we go on to the next section?
Yeah, let's read about the Shen.
Yeah.
Shen is the Chinese word for, like, deity or god or spirit. Do you want to read it? Go ahead.
Yeah,
you started.
I'll read it. Yeah. Like the Western world of darkness, the Middle Kingdom is haunted by a variety of supernatural beings, remnants of past ages of the world. Vampires prowl the city and shanty towns, while the jungles and mountains are home to the shape-shifting of Henge yokai. Wily sorcerers weave their spells in suspiciously nondescript curio shops, ghosts avenge unhallowed deaths or guard their mortal families, and fairies curse those who fail to honor the ancient ways. Although often at odds with one another, these beings differ from their Western counterparts, for they see themselves as part of a greater family of spirit beings. Collectively, supernatural beings are known by many names, but often refer to themselves by the Chinese word Shen.
They call themselves deities.
They call themselves gods.
Yeah. Unlike supernaturals in the West, Shen take relatively fewer precautions against discovery. The supernatural here has less need of masquerades and veils, for it's unobtrusive enough to mind its manners. Conversely, the Middle Kingdom's mortals, as a rule, have learned to ask fewer questions. Let the night people walk their road, the Amas, the Amas say, and they will let you walk yours.
Wait, that's not Chinese.
Unless Joss frowns on you.
I guess Joss. But that's because, I'm more of a...
Like, Joss is like an idol?
Okay. Unless the gods frown upon you is what they're saying there.
Yeah.
Amas. Does anyone understand that word?
No, in Korean, isn't there like ama? Isn't that like?
Yeah, there's like, oma is mother.
Yeah.
But like they're like, if you go into like the K-dramas, like the historical K-dramas, it sounds something similar to like Your Majesty, or like a queen, like omama, like
maybe it's from one of the languages that we don't speak, but I think what they're trying to say is elder, but they won't use the word.
They don't want to say elders for some reason, because we don't want to be offensive.
There's ajima, which is like for like lady, like addressing a lady, like a woman. It just sounds so familiar, but it's like it's not anything I've ever encountered, but it sounds so familiar. It's
Almost made according to Google. Oh, Jesus. The Masquerade, by the way, for those who don't know, the Masquerade is the rule by which most kindred live. Do not reveal to humanity that vampires exist, for they will freak, and we will have an inquisition on our hands. There's a lot of lore behind that. There's a lot of lore around that. We're not going to get into it. We don't have time. But
Ken brought something up. He said, "Ama" is how I call my mother-in-law in Cantonese, but it's not like "ama." It's like "ama." Like that.
Maybe they just Googled
mother-in-law. I don't. I think there's supposed to be like matron. Like maybe it's matron.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if it was just like written in a different way in English, then it would sound like something I would say in Korean.
Now here's the thing with this. There's one part here that I mean, this is all bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the one bit here is that they're saying how there's a part where they're talking about, oh yeah, unlike the supernaturals in the West, the Shen don't take precautions against discovery. The supernatural here has less need of masquerade or veils. Why? Because the people just don't ask questions. The people are subversive.
Submissive.
Sorry, thank you.
They're not subversive.
They're not subversive. They're submissive. And they're basically going to be like, oh, yes, Chinese people are all robots and they listen to the government.
Literally everyone's saying, like, all the different words of this just mean, like, basically some sort of female caretaker.
So a matron, like a matron,
Yeah.
is what they're trying to go for. Because I was like, it sounds like my like dad, like my mom talking to my dad's mom, but it also sounds like Korean talking about like mother.
Yeah.
So why didn't they just say...
Someone said in chat that Amma is grandmother,
Yeah.
father's side in Taiwan.
And another person said that it's more a woman employed by a family to look after children. Like, why didn't they just say, let the night people walk their road, the mothers say. Like,
Yeah.
and they will let you walk yours. There's a better way to phrase that.
They even try to make it plural by adding the S at the end, like
but that's not how pluralization
Amaz.
works.
You guys,
That's
that's for
how it works.
So if people want, I'm just going to grab this YouTube video to show why this is complicated in the Asian language. I'm going to share a link to one of the best videos that has ever been made on YouTube. It's by a channel called Off the Great Wall. Now, Off the Great Wall made a video outlining the Chinese family tree, but in Cantonese, and all of the different names that you have for different people in your family. So if you've ever been curious as to why Asian people call different grandparents different things, different aunts and uncles different names, this is why. So I'll leave that in the chat for everyone. It's a great video. But let's keep moving, because the next section is the yin and yang worlds. Beyond the Middle Kingdom, separated from it by a psychic wall.
Not the Great Wall.
It's a psychic wall.
Because they're isolated.
I mean, they do
isolated.
have the Great Firewall, which is a thing. But you don't see cyberpunk games leaning in on that.
I wish they would.
that would make.
Right?
Never mind. Let's-
Well, yeah. Asians and
next
androids
time.
will do a thing. Lie entire worlds of gods, spirits, and demons. Those Westerners who are knowledgeable of such... It baffles me as how many times they reference Westerners.
They keep jumping back because that's the frame of reference we're expected to be from.
Yeah.
Right? This is constantly like, so I know you're in the West and you know this, but I know you're in the West, but you know this, but
here's how it is in the East.
Yeah, like, so when you're reading Oriental Adventures, and to a lesser extent Al-Qadim, when we read it, they mentioned, I specifically remember there was a whole section on it, but it was like the one section. That was the point. Everything was from the white perspective, but they kind of like tried to hide that.
The worst part in Oriental Adventures was when they were describing the European knight riding into battle. It's such incredible detail, and then they were like, then the samurai rides into battle with his horse, and he's got his bow, he's got his sword, he's got his spear, I was like, how many arms does this guy have?
8. He's an octopus. 8. He's an octo-rai.
Octo-rai. Anyways, those Westerners who are knowledgeable in such matters speak of the Umbra, the underworld, or the dreaming. Shen, however, know that they interact with the dualistic worlds of yin and yang. Although invisible to mortal eyes, the yin and yang worlds lie just over the threshold of human consciousness, and sensitive mortals often detect eerie auras in places where the barriers are weak. The yin world is a gloomy place in the world of darkness, the source of passive negative energy. Many mortals pass into the yin world when they die, and some become restless ghosts. Eerie spirits and phantoms of all descriptions haunt the yin world, and its central realm is the terrifying Dark Kingdom of Jade. Okay.
So what are we drinking tonight?
I'm going to finish reading first.
I got this peach whiskey that I have in the fridge. I'm going to drink after this.
Yeah. Whole bottle.
Yeah, and I also made mandu, which is Korean dumplings. So
I saw that you received some.
yeah, no, my husband, he's like I made the batch, and so he brought some over, and I'm eating them right now.
I've got some makai paka I'm super excited to have. Should we talk about the Yang world before we get into it?
Yeah, we should just read this page.
Yeah.
By contrast, the Yang world is a patchwork of wild, turbulent realms, the source of active, positive energy. Spirits of nature and the elements dwell there, as do those entities revered by the shape-shifting Henga-yokai. Some mortals, particularly those from Shinto or animist traditions, pass to the Yang world upon their deaths. Shapeshifters and Fae in particular are attuned to the Yang world. In the first age of the world, matter and spirit were one, as was the design of creation's embodiment. The august personage of Jade. As the ages passed, though, the Yin and Yang worlds separated from the Middle Kingdom. Now, a wall separates the Middle Kingdom from the spirit worlds, and travel between two is an arduous and often hazardous process. The forces of Yin and Yang find it more and more difficult to turn the great cycle of being, and thus the Middle Kingdom's essential spiritual energies grow more and more dissipated. The resulting discord and imbalance can surely be seen in the current state of the Middle Kingdom and the misery of its denizens.
Yay, misery.
Okay. Okay. That was...
Yeah, so some people are mentioning Fae in the chat. I'll touch on it for a split second.
Yeah, I'm assuming that there's some like in-game lore here. Like what is like the Umbra and the dreaming? Is that World of Darkness stuff?
Yeah, that is World of Darkness stuff, and they're referencing other important worlds in other books. So the Umbra plays a lot into werewolf. The underworld, I think, plays a lot in part to ghosts. And the dreaming plays a lot into changeling. Changelings are also known as Fae. Remember, a Fae book was put out for this Year of the Lotus thing called Land of 8 Million Dreams. That's delightful. Let's not get into that too far, but the point is the reason why they're referencing Fae so much, and the reason why they're referencing Henga-yokai so much, is probably a lot to do with the fact that there are other books being printed out the same year, and they want you to buy them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, Umbra is werewolf and mage. Underworld is wraith.
I really want to read that mage book, Dragons of the East.
I do too. I'm not as familiar with mage as I am familiar with werewolf and vampire, but I'm really curious.
But what? Okay, here's what I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first super obvious thing here is that the authors of this book tried to basically take Chinese spiritualism, right? They tried to take the ideas of the yin and yang and the dualism of, contrary forces. And then they tried to make it a real world thing, right? But like yin and yang works within, Chinese philosophy. It works within Chinese medicine, martial arts, all of that. But you could tell that they couldn't put an entire world together based on that concept, or at least their understanding of it. So then they took elements of, say, like Shintoism, and then they took things like the Dark Kingdom of Jade, and they started mashing together elements of other religions into this reasoning for the misery that is World of Darkness Asia.
I mean, I want to bring back a split second the fact that the reason why these vampires exist is to repay a karmic debt. The first, like, the three paragraphs referenced a very Indian, although it does appear in Buddhism, which is also popular in other countries, a
Mm-hmm.
very Indian concept, a part of Indian philosophy and a part of Hinduism as much as a part of Buddhism and other religions. Like, and that, so we already started talking about Indian philosophy with the first introduction, and now Japanese philosophy is being mashed in there as well. And Shintoism is like, it's like I said before, this is it's a huge cultural mishmash. And to be fair, most of the World of Darkness is, but they usually don't draw from religion this heavily.
Yeah, well, because Asians are spiritual, according to them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, vampires in the real world, the regular World of Darkness, um, they reference themselves as the children of Cain, but that's it. They don't like have like, they don't have 20 other analogs, or if they do, it's to reference their own specific religions. They don't mash them all together, right? I mean, I get that they all, in a sense, do stuff like this, but there's a difference between that and really touching upon religion and philosophy, upon the hearts of these cultures, and then mashing it
Well,
together.
what's crazy is that they took like the metaphysical concepts of yin and yang and they
Hmm.
made them into essentially heaven and hell,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
which they are not.
No.
Yeah.
Which they are
uh,
not.
yeah.
So in this case, let's just trying to get to a better place, I guess, is if you were to draw upon this concept of yin and yang, how would you do it?
I wouldn't.
I would just
But
call,
I would. But you go ahead. Sorry.
I would, like, honestly, so there's three other worlds, right? The underworld, the Umbra, and the dreaming, and in the Western world of darkness. And actually, two of those worlds are no longer as separate as they used to be. But the point is that, like, they took three and turned it to two, and they put yin and yang over it, right? Or
Yeah.
they said, I want to include this concept, and then they put the worlds into it and pushed it together.
It's a
Those are
lazy
two.
reskinning.
It's a
Yeah.
reskin. So either make it obvious that it's a reskin, and don't call them yin and yang and make people make their own connections, or just call those three different things and use different words that are not referencing actual philosophy. Like, they already use the word gods to say all spiritual beings. I'm pretty sure there's a word for underworld
Hmm.
in one of our languages that they could borrow.
Yeah,
if they
but
really,
also
really
the idea of the underworld, like Chinese hell, is so very very different. It's also super bureaucratic.
Muslim hell is also pretty different, even though it's drawn from Christianity. And Hinduism, it's about reincarnation. um,
Yeah.
which, yeah, that's another fun part of this. It's just,
But you know what? One of the things here that it also says, this is the Middle Kingdom's essential spiritual energies grow more and more dissipated. I'm assuming that they haven't said that about the West, but in saying that the essential
Hmm.
spiritual energies, they say like, well, Asia has to be spiritual, and if the Asian people are not spiritual, then well, this is what happens.
it's,
Yeah.
sorry, Lemmie, I don't want to talk over you.
No. It's just that, like, I'm trying to, like, kind of channel my inner Steve and trying to find something good
Steve.
out of doing this, because, like, there's got to be, like, I just feel like really dejected, I guess, that there can't be, that this is just so bad. There's no way to, like, take any of this and, like, oh, we could build off of this. That's just, I'm just trying to see if there's something like that we could do with this. But, like, the more that we read, it's just like, it's just the same thing. Everything needs to be thrown out.
Yeah. So the more and more dissipated thing, it's a spiritual reskin. Although some people in the vampire world, the vampires often say this is because we've lost our faith. Um, building up towards a cataclysm that in real world will be released in 2004. When the Masquerade and the other World of Darkness ended and was replaced by what we now call the Chronicles of Darkness, or the New World of Darkness. So they are building up to that. That is the reason why that is there. It is bad because it's a reference to the whole world. It's not a reference to a certain belief. It's a reference to a whole world. Whereas vampires are like, oh, we've gotten away from our essential natures as vampires. That's why the world will come crashing down around us. This is, oh, it is happening regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why the cataclysm is coming. Yin and Yang, by the way, are going to feed a lot more into this than just this, which is
wonderful.
Well, I guess the best thing to come out of doing this then is like, this is what you're not supposed to do. I guess that's the best thing that we could get from doing this. It's just that, like, I was hoping that some of this could be salvaged, but it's not.
And that's admirable, and I really admire that. I just think so far this shit's just terrible.
I get real joy and real, like, there's something really good happening for me that I can talk about stuff like this with another group of folks. That's the reason why I'm here. Not only because I'm a vampire fan, and yes I am, but because, like, I want to read this book personally so I can see how badly they did it, so I know to watch out for the future. And I want to read it with folks rather than on my own, where I'm just going to be like, oh god, who do I tell?
Angry and alone.
Yeah, we can talk about it together. And I think that's another thing. This is about community, right?
100%.
We shouldn't just like be, oh, this is Asia and this is a community, but it's what's happening. We're forming communities within ourselves because of the ways we've been so heavily exoticized and so heavily made to feel like we do not belong. Because let's not forget, what if you want to play a Chinese person in the regular World of Darkness? There is some...
Well, because you can't, according to this, because you have to be openly antagonistic towards the other white vampires.
Yeah. Like that's the point. Like in the companion book gets into how there are different types of Indian vampires, some of whom are Kindred, some of whom are Kuei-jin. But for the rest of Asia, it isn't that, right? It is just, if you come from one of these places, I guess you'll end up like this, and you are fundamentally different from the rest of the world.
Yeah, well, it's saying that all Asian vampires. We'll say, since this takes place in the modern world, what if? How does I should ask this. How does one become a vampire in the World of Darkness?
Oh, fun. It is a process called the embrace. Because again, vampires are fancy about everything. So the first thing they do, usually, it doesn't have to happen, but the first thing they do is give the kiss, which is what they call biting someone to drain their blood.
It's elegant.
Yes, so elegant. And you could talk about in public. Isn't it wonderful? The first thing you need to do is find a bloodless corpse, a fresh bloodless corpse. And then you need to put some of your own vitae, or blood, again, into that bloodless corpse's mouth. And most likely, not always, most likely they will resurrect as a kindred. In the Kuei-jin, so kindred can happen anywhere. They won't be accepted anywhere, obviously, but they can happen anywhere. You could be a Chinese kindred. You'll likely get killed by the Kuei-jin. The Kuei-jin are different. Because of their karmic debt, they arrive back into the world, usually inhabiting their old bodies, but sometimes inhabiting a different one. And their body reconstitute themselves, however necessary, to come back into the world.
Oh, reincarnation, but dark.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. And I think one that a lot of us who were born in North America or spent the majority of our lives in North America can really vibe with. I don't say vibe with in a positive way, though. When you said that if you are a kindred, but you're, say, Asian American, you won't fit in with the rest of the Cainites. And the Kuei-jin will also try to kill you because you are not a Kuei-jin, because you are not a vampire of spiritual origin. You are a vampire of perverse blood origin. That is the story of the Asian diaspora. That is the story of being a child of the Asian diaspora, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if we're born here, I'm like, well, hey, look, I was born in Toronto, but I'm not white. So to everyone in Toronto, there is a chance that, like, where are you actually from? I was born in Toronto, right? But if I go to Asia, I don't fit in there because of my accent, because of my tattoos, because of, you know, my mannerisms, my attitudes towards the government, or how I speak to my parents, or anything like that. So I am not Chinese enough to fit in China, nor am I North American enough to fit in North America. And they have unintentionally done that with this game.
It's
It's also like just how, you know, like the dominant religion in North America is Christianity, and they're like demonizing reincarnation, the and how that, okay, you have to be spiritual our way and your spiritual is wrong. And like, I don't know if
it's
that's making any sense, but
yeah,
like,
like it brings up so many questions. What if you believe in all this but died in Toronto? Or what if you don't believe in all this but die in China? Do you become Kuei-jin in either situation? Who knows? And that's actually been a thing that's plagued the community, because there's no real right or wrong answer to that. And the worst part about this, the worst part is how it can be easily abused. Now, I've mentioned this before. I come from, like, yes, I come from Breakout Con. I saw what, yeah, I come from Breakout Con, but I also come from like community organizing. So I have to look upon things and say, oh, this is how this can be abused. And I can easily say, like, easily see a Chinese person sitting down at a majority white table with a white storyteller, that's what they call a GM here, and say, I'd like to play someone from China. And being told, well, then you're fundamentally different. Choose something
Yeah,
else.
100%.
Because that's happened. Those stories have happened. That's not like fake or unreal. And if you're a white person, you'll likely not understand that. I've heard what Chris Stewart said, read what Chris Stewart said, a controversy about game rules for sexual assault. Those rules are not in there. There's a huge like 3-page section on intimacy and sexual roleplay in V5, but the latest version doesn't have something like actual rules to commit sexual assault. And I've read this core book several times. The problem is that vampires by their nature are abusive, and playing a vampire is, in essence, kind of like playing a sexual abuser, because you're taking something from someone, often without their knowledge, often without consent. That is not an accident. That is a huge theme about Vampire the Masquerade. In V5, that was the core they came back to. You were playing someone who is a monster trying to cling to your humanity. And being a monster is a fundamental part of who you are.
Yeah.
So I would say if like, yeah, read the core book, find it for free, read it. There's no rules directly on sexual assault, but there are themes there. So if you are a person who could be easily hurt by those themes, then yeah, maybe don't play it. As for, will you sit down at a table and have that happen? I cannot promise one way or the other. I think with V5, it is easier to find a table that is somewhat safer in that aspect. But that is not true of a lot of LARPing. That is not, because Vampire is also a LARP, that is not true of earlier editions. And because this leans so heavily into the edge, you can fall into that trap. And many people have. This is a game that I've only decided to play myself with an all POC group, mostly queer group, all of whom know about safety tools. For a reason. I think in the right group, there are themes that can be really empowering to play with V5 as it is. And I don't think of that in the other editions. But I think you have, this is one of those books where you really do have to be in the right group. And to be fair, that is the core of what it is, because it deals so much with themes of taking something from someone that should not be taken without their permission.
And I don't necessarily think that is like a flaw. There are certainly very good games where you just can't play them with everyone, right? Like Bluebeard's Bride, fantastic game. I'm not going to play that with strangers.
Yeah.
people are mentioning the playtest documents. Yeah, the playtest documents for V5 were crap, but let's not get into it because again, they got rid of.
They got rid of them, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt for that.
Yeah.
So, the Wheel of Ages and that art.
Can I address something first?
Yes.
It's bad art.
The text doesn't line up.
It wraps
From the
around.
left side
Wait.
to the right side. They are slightly staggered.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
The title Wheel of Ages
Yeah.
causes that text to go down.
Oh,
and
that,
then they
I
just
mean,
start
it's
up.
like that on the first page on the introduction as well.
I
think it's the-
can't stop staring at this circle, and like that breaks up this text, and it's like it's really bothering me how they didn't do a good job
lining everything up.
Yeah.
So
sorry, just
no, that's okay.
Graphic design brain, just
no, that's totally valid.
There's a lot of wrapping around text here, places that it shouldn't.
I mean, what do we want to talk about first? Do we want to talk about the text, or do we want to talk about this really terrible art?
Well, the terrible art continues on to the next page. So should we just talk about the text first, or?
I mean, yeah, let's talk about the text first, because it references two things: the Wheel of Ages or the Great Cycle. And I'd be curious to know what is the real world say about the Wheel of Ages?
Okay. Do you want me? I
go ahead, Lemmie. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Even the spirits of the yin and yang worlds must conform to the inexorable progression of the cosmos, which most Shen dub the Wheel of Ages or the Great Cycle. Unlike their Western counterparts, few Shen speak of an ultimate beginning or final ending. For them, the universe is a series of ages revolving endlessly. Much of the Middle Kingdom's sadness is the byproduct of the current age, the fifth age of the Great Cycle, or the Age of Darkness. The ancient sutra spoke of this age, saying that it would be an anxious and unruly time when monstrous portents would trouble the people, when the dragons would shift restlessly in their beds and disharmony would spread across the land. And indeed, the omens of the fifth age are occurring, one by one. Have the five directions not been overrun with devils from the west? Did these devils not corrupt the soil with yellow winds? Oh, God. And trick the people into imbibing poisonous elixirs? Did not the shadow dragon breathe plague fires over Hiroshima, and the great ghost phoenix blossom into life over Nagasaki days later? And did not the 1,000 scarlet devils rudely cease to acknowledge the great cycle itself, mockingly renaming the age Year Zero? A bad time indeed, but the worst lies ahead. Soon the Shen know the wheel will turn yet again, and the world will reach the nadir of the great cycle, the sixth age, or the age of sorrow. All know of the sixth age imminence, even the ignorant devils from the west, though they refer it to as Gehenna or Apocalypse. During the sixth age, the wheels of matter and spirit will cease any semblance of alignment. The august personage of Jade, already estranged from the 10,000 things of creation, will leave its throne. In the august personage place, it will rise a demon emperor to reign supreme over the sixth age, as the august personage ruled over the first. An age of war and terror will take hold throughout the Middle Kingdom and beyond. Heaven will have its revenge against the impious?
Yeah, impious.
And 10,000 devils will be loosed upon the world. But just as the sixth age is prophesied to come, it is prophesied to pass. The struggle... Sorry. The struggle will cease, and there will be a great stillness, and those few creatures left alive will emerge from hidden.
Time passes even after everyone dies. Who knew? I think this goes on to the next page.
Yeah. Hidden places. Then will arrive a seventh age, a little better than the sixth, and an eighth, a little better still. And so the cycle will once more turn until it reaches the 12th age, which is also the first age, and the 10,000 things of matter and spirit will become one once more. Or so the sutras say. Few in this age have sufficient hope to believe.
Is sutra a word you folks understand or no?
I understand, yeah. Oh, and then look, there's the character for chi written wrong.
Yep.
For me, it's sutras is not a thing.
It's
for like Korean, like yeah.
It's a Sanskrit word.
It's a Sanskrit
at least
word,
it's basically texts of time. Just think of it like that. Because like I want to be the person who explains things. Ya Allah. Okay, so the word terror did trigger me, although this was written in 1998, so I can't be angry at it.
Yeah.
But I can be angry at the fucking re-explanations of one of the largest
of the atomic bombs being dropped.
Yeah.
And how they're like, oh, it wasn't the white people who did it. It was the Shadow Dragon and the Ghost Phoenix.
And the Ghost Phoenix.
Yeah.
When that happened, when Lemmie, when you were reading it, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. I almost exclaimed the word fuck.
I love how they basically said, yes, these catastrophes, it was the fault of the Asian spiritual world.
Yeah.
It is different to say these things were predicted or these things were guaranteed to happen, even though that is terrible. Because, yeah, that plays into this whole spirituality thing they've got going on and the prediction of time in the 12th age and whatever the fuck. But there is a difference between that and using different words to describe real-life atrocities committed by the West.
Yeah.
When you are writing from a Western perspective that killed scores of people, horrifically destroyed several others to the point where we can make it a thing not to do it again.
Well, there's multi-generational medical trauma associated with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because radiation is still fucking there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget how where was the bit where they said yellow winds?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
but the part that like I found so incredibly offensive was the part where they basically say those atomic bombs were just fated to happen. They had it coming.
This is your fault.
This is your fault.
No, it's not just fated to happen.
This is your karma.
Yeah.
They either rename the bombs and don't care to explain it, or they say, well, it wasn't the bombs at work.
Mm-hmm. It was the Shadow Dragon. One of the things that I hate is that they are constantly talking about Jade, but always in the negative sense. They were talking about in the Yin world, they were like, oh, the Dark Kingdom of Jade. As if they had like no cultural understanding of the importance of Jade.
I mean, it mentions before, did these devils, referring to the West, not corrupt the soil? But then it specifies, did not the Shadow Dragon. We've moved on from the devils. We're talking about the Shadow Dragon and Ghost Phoenix. As someone pointed out, Yellow Winds is clearly a reference.
Oh yeah, it's Agent Orange for sure.
But like Agent Orange, Yellow Winds, I get it. It's bad, I get it. It's a retexturization, and I think the Shadow Dragon, Ghost Phoenix are meant to. That is not how the sentence structure is written.
Yeah, but
they refer to separate things.
Yeah, they say devils from the West, and then they do that.
Mm-hmm. But they don't.
But they questioned it. But the thing is, they questioned. Did they not do that? And then they take the horrible atrocities of World War II and say it's the Shadow Dragon and Ghost Phoenix. But they also take something like the Phoenix and its symbolism and turn it against the Asian people and corrupt it. And I'm assuming the Ghost Phoenix is a Dark Phoenix, and I'm pretty sure this is a book that has something like Dark Chi. Am I right?
Well, Chi is split into two, Yin and Yang.
Oh, of course. Because that's how it works.
I hinted at it before.
That's totally how it works.
Yeah.
It's also Yala. Oh, and Demon Chi, right? I forgot. Thanks. I'm just saying.
At least D&D didn't do that.
D&D at least exists in a world where we can close it off from our minds. This does not. Like, I get saying humanity is turning against each other. It is killing each other by the score. We are bringing up we are coming upon the sixth age as we were guaranteed to, as humanity was from the start. Like, I get that there's a certain sense of terminality to it. I don't agree with it, but I understand what that theme is. And I don't think that theme in and itself is fundamentally offensive, especially considering Gehenna in the West is prophesied to come, which is the same thing. But there is a difference between that and phrasing it in such a way that almost ascribes the blame to someone else. That could be rewritten at all to say it could be ascribed to someone else. It's the same thing, a problem that I have with like Ares starting the Great War in the Wonder Woman movie. I don't like it because no, humans did that. Yeah, we have to acknowledge humans did that. And it is trying so hard to exoticize here.
It's also it's trying so hard to exoticize, but it's also trying so hard to flavor all of the dark things that have happened to Asia within this world and contextualize those things within the world of the Middle Kingdom. So it's like, let's take the Vietnam War, let's take World War II, and let's give those an in-world experience, in-world meaning. And this is where you're like, yes, World of Darkness takes place in a parallel, darker version of our world. But there are like lines to this. And those are lines that they not only cross, but leapt over.
Those are lines that they erased from the ground before they jumped over them.
And then let's go to the art.
Yeah. Well, this screams Yellow Peril, but I thought
this 100% screams Yellow Peril because if I just pull this up and I'll throw that there, let's just look at that on screen for the stream, and I'll send you folks the if you want to take a look, I'll send it in the chat that I sent all of you. Like this is straight up Yellow Peril art.
Mm-hmm.
It's so unbelievably bad because it's like, hey, we have the conniving Asian businessman. We have, for some reason, somebody doing martial arts. We have the dragon lady. And then if you go to the next page, when it wraps around, of course, there's the Yakuza, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, on the next page with chi on it, there's a dude eating noodles out of a takeout container.
Sorry, no, that wasn't funny. No, that is funny.
It's so bad.
So this is a thing that some parts of the World of Darkness have done before, as Dan Dillon mentioned in chat. Yes, it's also something we criticized it for doing this edition, and they shredded it. So, like, this is not acceptable today, and we know that, and we should mention that because it wasn't acceptable then either.
Yeah.
It's also, how many cultures have we just referenced? There's sutras, and then there's chi, and then this
they like, straight up say samurai.
Yeah, like
there's amas,
which could be multiple things.
So manipulated together to form something that is inherently confusing. Yeah, I like. It's not just really bad and offensive. It's also terrible writing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention that because I know I'm not going to be able to as we go on, because in a little time we have left, because it's hard to get past the horrific rewrites and the horrific assumptions and the horrific exoticism these have continuously put forward again and again and again. Like, it is insistent.
Yep.
It's true.
I'm just like struck by the understanding that some people will watch me in Al-Qadim, where I'm like quite nice comparatively. Like, I'm like, this is pretty bad.
I think after that stream though, we collectively agreed that we were all too nice, and the next session is going to be real bad.
Even if we were like, I think we were a comfortable amount of nice considering what it was. I think the next section, like, you should get used to this much anger. That's all I'm going to say. August 15th, everyone.
August 15th, the return of the Al-Qadim stream, which is It's a
The
great
honor
stream.
section.
I think y'all are doing a great job on it. But
Thank you. I'm very glad to have joined it. But this is, there is so much bad here. It's hard to be like critical and instead not just angry. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy the fact that I can get angry with y'all.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'm not alone. But it says something that this brings up so much vile anger.
yep. I certainly think that we should probably revisit this book and keep going. I don't know about how both of you feel about this. I think we
I'd
should
love
have.
to.
I think we should have more voices on this. I think we should have more folks kind of join us if they would like to share in this suffering.
That's exactly what it is.
But
Share
like
in our
we
age
were,
of sorrow.
Yeah.
and like even if we just like scroll through this and take a look at the art, like this next one, we talked about that with like the with the bra and then
Oh, put
like
on stream.
the drag. It's on
Yeah,
stream,
it's on stream.
and the dragon kind of claw that kind of goes over her boob, and then the tattoos that just like aren't real characters
Yeah.
or anything like that. Like, what is this?
Bad.
It's bad. And then we just keep going and we see altars are burning and oh look, there's like a word for sifu and like this
But we haven't even
weird
touched on chi yet, which is a core concept of this book.
Yeah, and I don't know why
Yeah.
we just write chi with a QI, but just
Uh,
but
So-
I'm just scrolling. I'm just
Yeah.
scrolling and just looking at all the different art and I'm just like, oh good God, some of this is just so bad.
some
And-
of it is, yeah.
Like and I know this is like a product of its time, but like God, why do they insist on putting textures in their graphic design?
It's okay. I've seen this argument made before on multiple things before, and I want to like cut it down. When we say it's a product of its time, we don't say in a time where this was acceptable.
No.
We say in a time where people did it and people spoke up, but they were ignored.
Yes.
This is a product
Yeah.
of continual, inherent, purposeful ignorance. That doesn't excuse it. That doesn't excuse any of this.
No, it
No.
doesn't. Like I
Oh,
love
great, Buddhas. I'm seeing reference to Buddhas. Wonderful, wonderful. But yeah, it's
Oh well, if you actually go to there's a whole Dharma reference chart.
oh no, you don't. So what I mentioned before, like about dharma, is a core concept as much as chi.
Yeah. Ugh.
Like you come back. Dharma is your clan,
Ugh.
and they're called things like the wave, the resplendent crane. Clans, by the way, are Dan Dillon's mentioning in chat. Thank you for covering what I can't because I'm so angry. Clans are like classes in other games.
Mm.
This
But,
is
like,
just so
this
bad.
Your
is-
dharma is your class.
Oh my lord. If you go to page 51 of the PDF, it would be page 57 of the book. There's actually a dude tossing fortune cookies. Or receiving fortune cookies. Underneath,
That's fucking Arabic.
yeah, on the I guess it's supposed, I don't know what they're
There's
the
a
back-
monkey sitting on the crescent and moon.
Yeah, and then
and
there's
there's a-
Arabic calligraphy over there on
And that's a
whatever
Buddha
that is, and
in
that's
the-
a
in the
Buddha.
back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and
so-
he's wearing a turban.
Yep, and receiving fortune cookies, which just aren't a thing in Asia.
We're all the same culture. Don't you know that?
Yeah.
So before we started the stream, I read this paragraph. It's on page 13 of the book.
Of the
Book, but it's
of
on
the
page,
PDF.
hold on.
Okay,
Of the,
13 of
The
the
lexicon.
book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
of
the
book.
lexicon?
Lexicon. So
11, page 11.
page 11, the third under lexicon, the third paragraph down, it says Gaijin speech uses a preponderance of Chinese words. This focus occurs not out of any disrespect to Korean, Thai, Japanese, Malaysian, or other cultures, but due to the fact that ancient Chinese civilization did indeed greatly influence the culture of the Gaijin in Japan, Korea, or Southeast Asia often substitute native words for Chinese. So this is like this is their way of saying like it's okay if we mesh all of these things together because like China influenced everything. So it's okay. It's okay if we do this.
They use dharma, karma, and sutra, and they don't fucking mention India.
Nope.
Nope.
But they mention Hinduism later in the book.
Yeah.
Of course they do, because like we're in the other cultures section.
Yep.
Like,
Ugh.
and y'all, there's some people do not know this. Buddhism was founded in India.
Yeah.
So just like putting that out there, it's yeah.
Dragon Nest, an area where chi is strong and the wall is weak.
Yeah, the wall between, you know, the veil, the wall, whatever you want to call it. Like, I get that. I don't know why they exoticized it so much, but that's a thing common with anything with ghosts in it. So sure. Bloody hell.
I love how they say daimyo is a Japanese synonym for ancestor, a house leader, and they
That's
completely remove it from its historical context.
They did that with everything here.
I think so. Okay, so Daniel, if you are going to do this, continue going through this content, I think it would be a good thing if we were able to, if your guests on the show were able to share stories that they could relate to while reading this, like how you shared like when you go to China you're not Chinese enough, and when you're here in North America you're not, you know, American enough. Like I think going through this just to go through it is it's already frustrating enough, but to be able to say like this is how my experience.
Well, yeah, contextualize the harm.
Yeah, like when we played A's for Average.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
I wish there was a virtual way to do it.
Oh yeah, it would be so great. So for everyone who doesn't know, A for Average is kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but for Asians, more like
it's for Asians.
Yeah, and after every round, what we did was like we were able to say, hey, this is why I put down this card. This is how, you know, what my experience was, and how. And then everyone was like, yeah, that was my experience too. And it was just like everybody was able to relate to each other, and not only like say that they were frustrated with some of the stereotypes or like things that in the game, but saying like but to be able to share that, how Adam Ali, you said that you were able to share your frustration and your like your emotions. That's it's nice to feel like you're not alone.
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. Sorry, I got distracted because I went to page 16 of the book, and it's suggested resources, and then it goes into page 17. I'm just looking at the movies. It's like these are the movies that, you know, you might find these informative on portraying the exotic and mystical feel of the East. And then the first movie, they're like Akira. And then they even have Big Trouble in Little China. And they say, of course it's goofy, of course it's broad. It's also one hell of a lot of fun if you don't take it seriously.
There's also no, again, India in here. So to that point, I actually want to mention something that happened to me when it comes to this stream. When we first met at Breakout Con, and you said, you should come onto the stream. I said, well, I don't know. I have roots in India. I don't know, like, but I'm not East Asian. I think I said I'm not Asian, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Something along those lines, but I like the erasure in here while still using so much Indian influences. It's a thing I've experienced throughout my life, from yoga to this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's even when there are check out some references. There is two things in reference to India in the book section, and in the movie section
There's
there is
none.
nothing.
None.
Despite the fact the most Bollywood exists. And there's some
But
dark
it's not.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't think it's dark enough because they have probably. I'm gonna make an assumption. They probably have a very stereotypical view of what a Bollywood movie is, and they're like, oh, it's a song and dance. Therefore, it can't be in our World of Darkness game. This is just bad.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things and maybe this is just me not understanding vampire, but why is Police Story 3 suggested here? It's a Jackie Chan movie. Don't get me wrong. It is an amazing Jackie Chan movie. But if you are going to put one of the Police Story movies, you are to put Police Story 1. But why? Is this...
I could not tell you, and I am a fan of Vampire who currently plays Vampire. I think, like what Chris Stewart is saying in the chat, you don't have to take this seriously, which is funny considering this is called the World of Darkness, or if you want to include a bunch of people attacking each other, why not get inspired by Police Story 3, aka Super Cop, because it's a Jackie Chan movie
and it's goofy. I also love how they're like, other cool stuff. And they're like, do you want Asian music and ambiance? Here's a Peter Gabriel album.
I don't think Jade Empire was made by this time, but Lord knows it would be in the other cool stuff section, right? You would find it in here.
Or oh, here's Kowloon's Gate. Let's talk about the walled city of Kowloon. And how that
for peak of what the Middle Kingdom might look like.
It looks like a cyberpunk city.
Oh, in the book section, Houston Smith, wrote the Illustrated World's Religions, a readable and accessible guide to the most popular religions in the modern world. Just in case you don't know what your Buddhism is.
Even better, pocket travel guides for China, Japan, Korea, and Indonesia. And Indonesia! These booklets come from a variety of companies and include helpful cultural details, phrases, cash systems, and legal notes, invaluable for the storyteller with a taste for local color.
And of course, India is not referenced in one of the pocket
No,
guides.
not at all.
So much India in here, but you're not expected to go there. So why would you want to do that?
Oh, look, Book of Five Rings. Just in case you... Used as a textbook in Eastern thought by American businessmen during the Reagan era.
Much white people.
There's so many white people here.
I feel like they just went to the bookstore and oh, that looks like an Asian font. Let's take this out and add it to this. This has an Asian word in it. This sounds like it's Asian.
They reference Sun Tzu's Art of War, and they compared him to Machiavelli. That's fun. Ugh.
I also love how I had to look this up, but the first reference is the Tao of Pooh, and I looked it up, and this is literally a book designed to introduce Eastern belief systems to Westerners by using the Winnie the Pooh characters as allegories for Taoist principles, and I love how they picked that.
I love it for very different reasons, because it's saying, we know your children. Please read the Children's Guide to Taoism. But and
then they also say, then there's the Tay of Piglet as well, but it lacks the classic qualities of the Pooh book.
Piglet,
oh my gosh!
I get where so Chris is Stuart in the chat's mentioning that, I see why they can recommend travel guides, and I do too, but that should be in the other stuff section. They're not a book, and they should be and if you really are confused, always go to your local library or your maps section and check out a pocket travel guide for inspiration on how to translate things back and forth. But they also that's a cliff note.
It makes absolutely, but then they also say invaluable for a storyteller with a taste for local color.
Yeah,
but also
but
also you could have just said, hey, if you want to portray Asia accurately, look at some travel guides.
Yeah.
It might help
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Why did they devote a whole section to that?
It's bad.
And I was wrong
Yeah.
before. There is one book about India. There's one thing about India in this. It's just
Ancient China
time
and historical
like
India.
Yeah. It's like both books contain timelines, cultural details, and interesting discussions of Buddhism and other faiths.
And then when they say Akira, they were like more technological than supernatural, though mystic cults fit right in. This anime is nonetheless a gorgeous, it looks like it was italicized too, gorgeous look at a dystopic, damned Neo Tokyo. Give the soundtrack a listen as well. This is supposed to be China.
This is so much fun. So when I was watching L5R, they included like a references section, an inspiration section. This is different from that. This is like, here's some cool stuff to check out.
Not like this is here. They didn't put a single movie about Jiangxi.
No, but Jiangxi are a different type of vampire. They're the Yulankin. Remember?
Yeah, which is stupid because they should be the Chinese vampire, except they lack agency and there are a lot of other things there.
Yeah. But the reason why I'm pointing that out is like, one, if you're doing a book about, let's be honest, the writers are all white people. You're doing a book about a culture you know nothing about. You should include a references section, like an actual references section, and even for like an inspiration section, you should include dates. This is a problem I had with the L5R section too. Include dates in your references or inspirations, because that way you are not hiding the fact that some of your references are old and thus biased.
Well, even here they say, like, if you get a chance, see this film in a theater when they talk about Green Snake. You know what? You want to see what the worst one is? That this one, like, screams, "I'm white and I wrote this."
I love that.
Vampire it's on page 17. Vampire Hunter D, and they wrote Japanese. Yeah, the vampires in question are more like Kindred than Koijin. The animation is less fluid than, say, Akira, but the moves are pure manga. But what the hell? This is a great flick and well worth the rental price.
Go to your local Blockbuster.
Go to your Blockbuster.
I hate this so much.
I enjoy it. This is my favorite bits, where they're just like, cool stuff. We like Asia. Here's some cool stuff. He's not even trying to be anything else. The entire section should be called cool stuff.
You want to see something that's really bad? And only an Asian person would actually catch this, I think. So
is it the last one?
No. Above Vampire Hunter D, The Bride with White Hair, Chinese. One of the best films of the Hong Kong Renaissance.
Oh, fuck.
Picture Lian Yichang as a vampire. It's not hard.
Okay, the last one, it says Year of the Dragon, US. Quotation, Year of the Yellow Peril is more like it. Still, this hyper-violent run through Chinatown captures the cynical world of the Kaijin better than many other less atmospheric efforts.
This is Yellow Peril, the source book. It's a lie because there's India in it too, but like still, whoa boy,
that just screams like, oh,
it's just beautiful. I love this so much because you can really see where they are coming from, and it's not from a good place. It's from the place we literally talked about at the beginning of the stream, where why do you want to write this? Because it's cool. And that is the entire book. Like I am very happy to come back and talk about this. I am enjoying myself.
I'm down to continue reading because I'm just like, this is so bad. like and I know we want to try to find good things in this, but I think this book is objectively just terrible.
Yeah.
Well, I was just trying to
No,
kinda, like,
absolutely.
keep it up.
Let me
appreciate that.
I really, it's good to be reminded about, let's try and find good when we can find it, because that is the part of our lives, isn't it? Whenever we're seeing our cultures represented, where we're trying to find the right. We're trying to find the right. We're trying to find the right.
Oh, I would have just been angry, just like yelling, if it wasn't for seeing Steve try to find the good in Oriental Adventures. I honestly, like, he inspired me to try and just like try and see what we could do. Is there anything that we could build off of this? And it, like, I think the best that we can do right now is just like, this is bad, and like let's show other people why it's bad.
Yeah, this is a different kind of lesson.
Yeah.
It's also in a very important lesson right now when V5 is still being built and people are asking for Kuei-jin to come back.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's in the community. That's not necessarily the writers.
Yes, of course.
But like, as much as like we're mocking it and making fun of it and also being like, what the fuck? This is, if you are going to even consider this, come back to this. Come back to the sequel when we have it. And look about how we are noting everything that is wrong, picking it out piece by piece, so you know that this is probably not something you should be rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know? I know a lot of people are going to consider this nostalgic. Fuck that. But
oh, look, there's
it.
Raksha.
Allah. I get it, but that doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
I get nostalgic for like those. When I was a kid, I always wanted one of the big fancy wedding cakes they had in the bakery section, like in the bakery. One of the ones with like practically styrofoam. And one day my mom bought me like a small one, and it was the worst cake I've ever had. And I'm still nostalgic for that. I'm still nostalgic for like fondant.
I have a cake story. So I really like those grocery store slab cakes. Like the super sugary ones that you can get at like Loblaws. And nobody else in my family likes to eat them. So every year on my birthday, my mom gets me a small slab cake just for myself. And over the course of a week, I eat the entire cake.
That is delightful.
It's a thing.
Oh, gosh.
It's a thing. I love slab cake, and it's so bad for you. It's just all sugar.
Well, it's terrible. But like,
but anyways, we are going to have to revisit this stream. We're going to have to do this again. Because, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. I think one of the things that we've realized with this is while, say, Oriental Adventures and while Al-Qadim have perhaps some redeemable qualities, some things that they did all right, they did a lot really bad. And we're going to find out just how bad they take honor in Al-Qadim this month on the 15th. Because it's way worse than Oriental honor.
Can't wait to talk about it.
That's gonna be. Can't wait to listen to it. I think Kindred of the East is an example of just everything that you shouldn't do. It's an example of like what can go wrong, how Asian cultures can be exoticized, how Asian cultures can be fetishized in the art, how Asian cultures can be treated as as one culture or an other to be feared. Mm-hmm. But also how you can trivialize Asian cultures. What are you looking at?
Super Demon City and Supernatural Beast City, Japanese animated show. Just how malignant life and unlife in a city overrun with supernatural influence can be. Wait, the latter film is just shy of prurient, but the horror and love story compensate for the monster tentacle sex.
What?
Yeah, I was looking at that earlier, but I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it.
Well, now I have now. Well, when I upload this to YouTube, now I have to click that this is not for children. Thank you.
I'm sorry. You saw my reaction live.
Because I was talking about like, yeah, this is all the bad stuff, and then I see your face. You just went, and I was like, yeah, and then this is how they exoticize Asians, and you were just like, I'm like, are you just finding out that this is bad? And then I'm like, what's going on? But
gosh.
So I think our takeaway with this compared to say L5R, and I'm very curious about like the current edition of Vampire. Like very curious. I would honestly, I'd play it, just to see what it was like. Because it's the same thing with L5R, right? We're looking at L5R right now, and we're seeing like, yeah, there are certain parts of L5R that are just like not good, right? And L5R is kind of in a weird position design-wise, where a lot of the icky parts of it can't be divorced from the game without just making a brand new game entirely. A, because it's so bound to its lore, and B, that honor, strife, glory, and all those things are so important to just how the game plays.
Yeah.
But there are certain good things about L5R. L5R did right, by saying that, hey, you are not playing outsiders. You are playing people who are from this land. The art is amazing.
Very inclusive.
It's very inclusive. It's incredible. And then on the opposite end of the like kind of problematic Asian TTRPG spectrum is this piece of shit that we just read. And like we'll say it as it is. I mean, I think morally, I feel very uncomfortable trying to defend this because it's just bad. They've literally mashed together Asian cultures, as many things have done. Oriental Adventures did this, right? L5R does this.
Al-Qadim does this.
Al-Qadim does this, right? And they have mashed together Asian cultures in a way that explicitly tells the reader, tells the gamer, tells the person engaging with this material that Asians are to be feared. And especially at a time like this, where Asian people are, being attacked on the street. Asian people are, experiencing a lot of unjustified hate. If Paradox, it's Paradox, right?
White Wolf through Paradox, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So if they were to publish a Kindred of the East reworked edition, right? There is a lot of room for harm. There's a lot of room for, players to use this as a tool to be hateful. And that's what we've just looked at. A tool that enables non-Asian gamers to play Asian stereotypes. I mean, they even reference hentai tentacle porn in this. So this is just so terrible. That being said, if you want to, see something that's good, see something that's great, we're doing a live show at Gen Con. This Saturday, Asians Represent is going to be doing a live Dungeons and Asians one-shot. We're doing this on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's free. We're going to be playing Quest. I'm actually going to throw the link into the chat right there. Free to register. And we are doing a supernatural body horror military one-shot where Amar, Agatha, and Steve are playing as members of Crane Corps. They are a unit of Imperial shamans who have been sent north to investigate rumors of treason. They are tasked with maintaining harmony within the southern floodplain, within the borders of Sha. So we're playing a Dungeons and Asians military horror one-shot at Gen Con. So I just threw the link in the chat. You can join us. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link is going to be in the description. That being said, we have some amazing guests who have joined us today for this stream. Adam Ali, what have you got going on?
It's hard to change tack like this. Yeah, my name is Adam Ali, also known as Werewolf Feels. Yeah, you can call me Werewolf if you like. I don't mind. You can find me on Twitter at Werewolf Feels. It's been linked up there. And this weekend, you actually can find me on 2 panels at Gen Con. If you don't want to see Asian Represents game, which why wouldn't you? But if you don't want to see that, I'll be running a panel. I'll be in a panel from 5 to 6:30, roughly at the same time, on the Friends Who Roll Dice Twitch channel, called "We're Here, We're Queer, and This Is Our Space Too," with some great folks. And if on Sunday you want some morning affairs, we're going to be talking about playing evil characters in the Beyond Evil panel. Come on, y'all know I'm good at this.
That might be awesome considering what we just read.
Right? From 10 to 11, we're going to talk about safety, folks. From 10 to 11:30 on the Utopia Twitch channel. You can find me also on the Al-Qadim stream. Next one's August 15th as a recurring guest every third Saturday here at the Asians Represent Twitch channel. And, you know, you might find me in other places too. I'd be happy to be in almost anything so long as it's not a game of fucking this.
Yeah, let's play a game of the current edition of Vampire.
Oh, I'd love to.
Do you want to run one?
I wouldn't say no.
That might be fun.
I wouldn't say no.
How about you, Lemmie? What have you got going on?
Oh, hi, I'm Lemmie. You can find me on Twitter at Lemon and Honeyco. I have a business called Lucky Hand Dice where we handcraft and also manufacture dice. So we're slowly getting into that, hoping to partner with indie creators, indie game creators. So to start partnering up with them and building our community. I will be at Gen Con doing one panel on Friday. The panel is called Brand New You. It's a beginner's guide to branding yourself, your business, or your channel. So if you are looking to brand any of those things, I will be giving you actionable like things to
Intel.
Yeah, intel
Advice.
to actually start branding yourself. Yeah.
That's dope. LuckyHandDice.com. Handmade, sharp-edged, artisanal dice. Don't forget Breakout Con.
March 19th to the 21st.
March 19th to the 21st, 2021. Knock on wood, we can do that, and we can just be in the same place again. That being said, wear a fucking mask, please. Wear a mask. Asians Represent. You can follow us. On all the socials at AZNS Represent, except for Twitch, which is AZNS Rep. We're gonna be doing our Dungeons and Asians special one-shot Saturday, I believe August the 1st, at 4 to 6 p.m. I'm just going to confirm that once again, just to make sure. And yes, it is August the 1st from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll be doing a one-shot set in the north of Xia at Heaven's Gate, a fortress where bad things are going on. And Lemmie knows about this because I actually ran this adventure in D&D at Big Bad Con. We had a really great time, but unfortunately, I cannot put that audio up. For reasons.
But you know what? I'll post some of the sketches.
Oh yeah, you did that art.
Yeah, definitely Cleo's character.
Oh,
Love
so cool.
that one. So I'll do that.
Oh, that's sick. Yes, thank you. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you for coming out to this. Give us a follow if you can. Give us a sub. Follow us on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome to the channel. We put everything we do on this Twitch channel on YouTube. So if you missed this, if you caught this late and you only, caught us actually talking about the tentacle stuff, I swear we talked about real stuff at the beginning. So check it out, youtube.com/AZNSRepresent. And if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified when we go live. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And Lemmie, Adamali, thank you for joining us for this, honestly, incredibly cathartic, but also infuriating read through. For all of you who, tuned in and shared our feelings, whether you're Asian or not, please make sure that you take the time to self-care after all of this. The same goes for both of you. Take time, spend time with loved ones, take care of yourselves, and just try not to think about how awful this book is.
Respect each other, love each other.
Exactly. Take care,
Eat
everyone.
a lot of food.
Eat so much food. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.